Direwolves and Legacy about to go head-to-head here and battle it out for the third game of the day here in the DoorDash LCO. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I'm joined by the one and only Juves and the two and only Elfish guy.
Are you saying there's two of me?
I don't know. I don't even know what the saying means. I'm just saying it, and you're number 2 next to me, whereas he's number 1. So I just went down the list, and this list is getting too long. You know,
just look at this face. It's the face of pain. I can't believe I'm number 2 to you, Mac. We've been casting together for years.
No, you're number 2.
I practically got you this job.
Yeah, well, you did get me this job, but it's okay, and it's fine. We can talk about that another time, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the game. Let's talk about Direwolves. Direwolves, they've been looking pretty damn good so far this split. We've enjoyed it. And now look at this. The man, the legend, he's back in the lineup. You got Cupcake there jumping into the support role, and Gunkrab back where he deserves to be in ADC. Juves, are you excited?
I'm very excited. I will say, though, I think Gunkrab actually had some phenomenal performances in the support position. So, yeah, Cupcake probably a little bit nervous watching the games back. He's like, ooh, maybe Gunkrab is going to swap the support. But, no, it's good to have this roster back, and hopefully they can build on some of the momentum that they built earlier into the split. Claire, I think, has been a player that stepped up for them big time. You know, it has been on the Silas, I will say. He's looked quite good when on the Silas. So it does seem like he's diversifying his top lane champion pool. You know, Only's really finding his groove as well. And I think just across the board, individually, that everyone is playing a lot better than they did last split. So it's definitely something to build on for the Direwolves.
What about you, Jordan? What's your favourite thing you've seen from Direwolves so far, and how excited are you to see a little bit of Cupcake back in the mix?
Yeah, I mean, I think the tenacity just to sort of stick in there with the sub for a couple of weeks, it doesn't sound like a big deal, and to be fair, based on the performances, it probably actually hasn't impacted Direwolves all that much. I thought they did really, really well. But I can imagine that really throws off your game plan in a lot of respects, and not only having the sub for those 2 weeks, but also then sort of reintegrated Cupcake. I don't know, has he been scrimming with the lads for those 2 weeks? Has Calrock and Gunkrab been the two sort of scrimming, or what that has all been like? So I'm sure it's going to take them a little while to sort of find their footing. And by that stage, you go, all right, well, we're halfway in the season now, and it only starts to feel like we've actually played with our core for a reasonable amount of time to feel comfortable. So I respect the way that they've sort of gone about things.
Well, there you have it. And in the other corner of the rift, I present to you the Tree Gang, Legacy, coming at you and looking to get another win on the board. They've been close a few times, and Incurzio even got his Katarina, but got out-drafted and wasn't allowed near anyone last week. So, Jubes, what is the answer for them? What's the secret, and how are they going to get another win on the board here today?
I think they just need to find a little bit of consistency across the board, right? I think Winter has really stepped up, having some good performances, but, you know, everywhere else, it's similar to the Mammoth story. Sometimes they're playing well and others aren't, and it's just never a collective, you know, everyone's firing on all cylinders in the same game. And not that that needs to be the case all of the time, but it just needs to be a team effort, no one overcompensating. And, you know, if there was a game that you thought, you know, they were going to win and really build off, it would be this Gravitas game that we're watching in the replay here. A little bit hard done by the minions, and maybe they had a conversation with Riot about that one later on. And for those of you that don't know, they were backdoored by minions and they lost the game that way. So, you know, Legacy just need to, I guess, show us a bit of improvement week by week, because I think they've kind of taken maybe one step backwards, but opportunity to take 2 forward.
Look, and if you did want to watch that back, you can always jump over to the YouTube and go back and check that over on the LCO YouTube. Now, someone that loves YouTube, Natsy, tell us how much you love YouTube, as well as Twitch, as well as interviews and people down on the sidelines.
I love it. I can't even pick a favorite. I just have to share the love all around and just say I love them all equally.
Well, who are the 2 people you are having a lovely interview with today?
I'm going to be joined by Shock and Amelg for this pre-game interview. Thank you both so much for joining me. Amelg, I'm going to ask you, because it's been a little bit on social media. Lately, we saw Shock have a bit of a go at Legacy's player pictures, for those who are following on Twitter. So how much more is this win going to mean if you guys get it?
Yeah, definitely going to mean a lot more. Get bragging rights for sure. And I have a theory that in the video, he didn't actually show our team's pictures, so they were probably just way better than Direwolves' picture. I don't know, just my guess.
He was just too afraid.
Yeah.
I get that. What do you think you guys are going to have to focus on to get a win tonight?
Mainly just not throwing out leads. I think everyone's seen it quite a few times now. We get a lead early, and then we don't have a lead anymore suddenly. So yeah, main thing is just making sure we're following fundamentals and not screwing things up in the mid to late game.
Yeah, I mean, it's much easier to say than do for sure. Now, Shock, you guys are going to be having Cupcake rejoin you for the first time this split. So how excited are you for that? And are there nerves with him coming back on the team?
Definitely no nerves. Like, Cupcake's a confident person, and like we played with him a lot last split, right? And we still played some scrims with him, even like during the sub period. So I wouldn't say it's really something new for us. I guess the biggest change is like the ball lane drafting for us. Like before, we pretty much just like play crazy stuff or like whatever Guncro wanted to play every game. So now I think we'll be going back to something like more meta rather than just like Guncro first timing a new champ every week. Or I didn't first time them, but you know, we'd like never scrimmed on some of these picks. So yeah, it was kind of exciting to use those, to be honest.
Yeah, but now we'll see a little bit more of a rehearsed Direwolves. I did want to talk on that practice topic. You know, how have scrims and prac been going for you guys, and what are you focusing on coming into this match with Legacy?
I think scrims have been like all over the place for us. Sometimes we beat good teams and sometimes we lose to bad teams. It's just been really inconsistent, I would say. Going up against Legacy, like obviously they're one of the weaker teams, but they're pretty explosive and not really a team that you can like lay your guard down. I feel like they will definitely like beat some teams this split. Might not be yet, but they will eventually.
Well, Amelga, my last question will go to you. You know, what is your focus for you guys to try and beat Direwolves tonight specifically? Any players?
Well, I mean, I feel like we've been able to show up against quite a few of the bot lanes in the LCO, so I'm hoping we can do that again tonight and build up from there.
I look forward to seeing it. Thank you both so much for joining me and good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, good to see that they are ready for this battle for bragging rights. It's always a nice gentleman's agreement to go for this one. So I guess we'll see once we get there. Anyway, before we jump into the predictions, has anyone gone for the underdogs here, or who is at least on the table right now, the underdogs? Anyone? Any hands?
Well, who are the underdogs? Who do you think are the underdogs?
Legacy are the underdogs. If you look at the standings, they're under the dogs. Wolves are dogs, so, you know, it just makes sense. Anyway, I'm going with Twitch chat. You know, Twitch chat, believe in you, do me well, do me proud. Thank you very much. Jupes, Jordan, please tell me why Direwolves are your pick. Is it just because they're the favourites again?
Yep, that's pretty much how I predict. Unfortunately, I've got nothing interesting to say. You know how it is when you ask me for predictions, Mac. It's always the favourite.
I'm going to quickly do one different and say, I like that Twitch chat is losing because then they can never flame or insult me or my casting partners ever again. If we're beating them in predictions, they can't talk. Don't talk.
There you go. Because that all 13 and 5, that's all Twitch chat. None of that was me maybe going the wrong direction. Anyway, Rusty still 17 and 1, and it looks like he's going to be pretty much mono a mono with everyone unless Twitch chat chooses me. Legacy, I guess we'll see once the game starts. But that's that. So Nat, you know, any bias reasons why you're going for Direwolves there, or just because you think they're the favourites as well?
Well, I mean, they're roughly the same rosters versing up against each other as we saw in Split 1, and Direwolves came out on top of that. So, yeah, pretty much just the same as picking the favourites because they're favourites.
Well, there you go. So, just leaning into history. Now, are we going to see any crazy picks from either of these teams going into the draft, or do you think it's going to be same old juice?
Probably being Curcio with the crazy picks, and like at this point, if he picks Katarina, is it crazy anymore? Like it's just like it's almost meta. If Legacy draft Katarina or like something wacky, it's it's meta. They're playing 11.12 like Legacy.
Well, let's see if it's time for Legacy to keep playing Legacy's meta, or if they join the meta with the rest of us. It's time for the game. Direwolves and Legacy coming at you all right now.
Indeed. Should be an interesting one here, Juves. 0-4 start to the split for Legacy. That is not the number that they would have been looking for, and maybe not even the number that they were expecting, given some of the matches that they've actually been able to play. I mean, in particular, I'm kind of looking at that Gravitas game as being at least one that Legacy should have picked up based on the performances from the last split, but hasn't gone their way. Tough ask today against Direwolves, especially with the the addition of Cupcake coming back in. You can only imagine that should elevate the strength of the Direwolves roster.
Yeah, 100%, and it'll probably change the way that they draft too, right? They no longer have to have concerns around champion pools and what they can play, what they can't play, and Claire's probably the one player that's made this Gwen, and arguably probably the only player that's had Gwen, work. And I know they lost, but he was like the shining light and potentially the win condition for the team. So the fact that Legacy give this one away, I'm interested to see what they counter it with.
Yeah, no surprise to see the Thresh picked up in the early rotation as well for Direwolves. That was a big talking point last split, that Cupcake was not only a very good Thresh player, but maybe even a little bit over-reliant at times on the Thresh. So going to see him go straight back into that. I personally don't mind seeing it. Obviously, first game back in Split 2, probably want to be on something that you're comfortable with. Just get eased into things quite nicely, and it's obviously a solid champ. So very, very good selection from Direwolves. Does give the Nautilus over to Legacy Esports, which is maybe a little surprising to see that high in terms of the priority when there's a lot else on offer, but Rumble also being picked up in this rotation for Legacy. So you're starting to see things come together. A lot of crowd control, a lot of team fighting ability for Legacy already.
Yeah, I like what both teams have put together so far. You know, Legacy, again, it feels like, you know, these two are in tandem, right? Every time we've seen Rumble picked, I think we've seen a Nautilus on the same side as well, because you think about the auto attack, the ultimate, and the dredge line coming out of Nautilus, that's just like 3 seconds of pure CC where they're just going to be sitting on that Rumble carpet. So it makes a lot of sense that teams are just opting in for these. And I'll be honest, it really does feel like most drafts are a little predictable tonight, in the sense that, not that there's anything wrong with it, they're just picking the S tier champions, right? It's like Diana for Rumble trades. It's Nautilus in the bot lane versus Leona, and in this instance, Thresh. You know, we got the Viego given away, the Gwen taken away. So it's you know, if you had to write a script, you'd include these champions in it, and it ultimately is just going to come down to execution. You know, are they able to stop Claire getting ahead on this Gwen? You know, is Sybil going to be able to have a performance of a lifetime on this Rumble? Viego is it going to do what Chaz was able to do last game?
Yeah, very heavy AP presence coming through from Direwolves as well already with the Gwen and the Diana. Could leave something open maybe for Shock in the mid lane to look towards an AD mid. But obviously you still have the 80 carry still yet to be chosen as well. And to your point actually around the Rumble and Nautilus interaction, last time we actually saw Legacy playing, they did play the Rumble, but they played it with the Thresh. Now that wasn't an option here for them. They've kind of got the next best thing, or maybe in this instance, an even better thing, right? I guess that really comes down to your personal preference. But it should fulfill fairly similar sort of roles. See, the ADC's being banned away for the most part. Ezreal is still on offer. Haven't seen much Ezreal actually today, I feel like, which is a bit of a surprise because he was a priority pick in previous weeks and has been in a pretty good spot.
It has been banned away in some of the games tonight. However, I'm surprised that we haven't seen Ezreal picked up by both of these AD carries, right? You know, Direwolves, maybe I can understand a little bit more because they tend to opt in for the likes of a Jinx, which has now been banned, or, you know, the scaling type AD carries. That's like what Guncab is kind of hovered towards. Whereas, yeah, Styled, I think, is more of like that utility, you know, weak side, fulfill a role in the team player. So Ezreal definitely suits how they play the game, and they've picked it up now.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen the Senna and the Varus come through this season already for Styled, so that probably ties into what you're talking about. Happy to sort of play that scaling game and see what kind of extra utility he can add to the roster. Or maybe poke potential as well in the case of the Varus. And we get Lucian out for presumably, I want to say, the top lane for Winterer. Although I guess actually Incursio is a Lucian player.
Yeah, well, you know what? You're actually right. I actually didn't even think about that. So I think that Incursio is more comfortable on the Viego. He's put more time into that champion. So we probably will see Lucian into the Gwen and Incursio on the Viego. Now, it was banned away from Incursio, right, the Viego last week. So it might be something that, you know, he's really comfortable on, and I've definitely seen him playing it on his stream. So I'm actually excited to see Incursio maybe pop off on this champion. I guess you could consider it like Katarina Light, in the sense that, you know, all he wants is resets, and he's used to the resets.
definitely is very much an Incursio champion, isn't he? He likes to get into that melee range. He likes to be jumping around all over the place, doing the damage, and having that playmaking ability, I suppose. So it's a champion that certainly fits well with his identity as a player. One thing to touch on as well that we sort of spoke about a little bit earlier was the AD coming through from the mid lane as well. We've got Nocturne there for Shock. So just to pad things out a little bit, not just solely relying on that Cogmore down in bot to be putting the AD damage through. Nice sort of spread of damage from the Direwolves roster. I mean, it is interesting. Obviously, we've got the Cogmore paired with the Thresh, and obviously that can work, but no Lulu in this instance. So his survivability could be potentially hindered if he gets jumped upon. You do have Lantern, obviously, and quite a degree of peel coming through from a Thresh, but you don't necessarily have the buffed Cogmore, which kind of relies a little bit, I think, on Cupcake to be hitting his abilities, needs to be hitting those hooks, needs to make sure he's in the right spot to be having a flay that's going to be quite useful, and also potentially a Lantern, whereas for the likes of Lulu or Karma or whatever, you just basically dump all your spells on the Cogmore and let the AD carry do the rest.
And you've also got to think about it in terms of mobility too, right? Generally we see Thresh with the Jinx because the Lantern's so good, but Jinx can kind of play the Lulu speed herself when she gets excited in a team fight, whereas Cogmore doesn't have that route. However, interested to see if they can make this one work. I think both compositions are fairly well-rounded in the sense that they're very good damage spread, very good scaling on both ends. And you have to say the agency and the onus is probably going to be on Legacy. They have the champions to really facilitate a strong early game, particularly when you think of the likes of a Cogmore, a Gwen, a Diana, a Nocturne needing level 6 as well. So it does feel like a very Legacy-esque composition.
That's a very good talking point as well, Juves. I'm going to leave it there for you for the moment and have a chat with Ceres and see what he thinks about how things have panned out from that draft. Ceres, first of all, how's things going?
Yeah, it's going pretty well, mate. And the draft, I think, looking pretty good.
Was that something that you specifically angled towards, that sort of early game impact that, I think is kind of typical of Legacy in the past, that you guys do like to get things rolling pretty nicely. So was that an aim of the draft, or is that just by happenstance?
It definitely is an aim of our drafts that we're facilitating what I think that we're strong at, and our early game is a clear strength. It's something that we've been matching the best teams with, and transitioning that into the actual wins is a problem.
Okay, interesting to think about as we go through this game. And one other thing to note, I suppose, is that obviously Cupcake has come back into the roster, and I know we've talked to you about it in the past, obviously more so in relation to Guncrab and Calrock. But what does Cupcake bring back to the roster? Is he quite a vocal player, or is he just sort of being able to bring that extra ability in the support role? And what does it sort of mean to have Cupcake back for you guys, or to be going up against him, I suppose?
Right. Well, I guess Cupcake is obviously a veteran and been around for a long time. I would imagine that he has a lot of leadership on the team, and that their shot calling and their people who are being vocal is drastically increased. So we expect them to be a lot more coordinated. It's possible that they haven't really practiced with Cupcake recently as well, because he is fresh off of his hiatus to finish up his exams. And if anything, I think this would be the best time for us to play him when he's just coming right back. I hope he doesn't prove me wrong, but yeah, I do think that this would be the best time to do so.
I mean, he's gotten onto a comfort champion, so I suppose that is something that we'll kind of keep an eye on. And I do want to jump back to the drafting for a second, because I know it's always a big talking point with Legacy around the fact that you guys do have some pocket picks. I mean, I think specifically in the mid lane, we saw a little bit of it last season, even for Winter up in the top lane with some sort of interesting selections. Is that something that's sort of primarily driven by the players, or are you sort of the one that's kind of making those decisions when it comes to the draft and how that all sort of pans out? Or I suppose is it more of just a team-oriented thing where you all just sort of get together and say, this is how we want to play these drafts out, this is what we want to do?
Well, for sure, draft is always limited by champion pools and availability, right? So inherently, they are, especially if it's something that's unique, it's inherently something they're already doing. Especially from a coaching standpoint, there's no sense in making somebody go out of their way to pick something or to learn something that's extremely off meta. So for sure, there's a big impact from the players. It's definitely a collaborative effort, I should say. Though it doesn't just happen in isolation, but I would say that it's mostly the players kind of pushing forward the champions that they play.
Awesome. Well, I'm hoping it obviously goes well for you guys today. Definitely in need of a win. And I guess I'll leave it there for you, Series, and say best of luck in this series because it should be quite an interesting one.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Appreciate it.
Cheers. All right, Juice. A little bit of action actually going on down in that bot lane. Very interesting. We're talking about Cupcake, and he's going down straight off the bat. You'll also be happy to see those first bloods going over to ML.
I'll be honest, I think I blew into my microphone like 2 times during your interview because I was just like shocked at what happened bot lane. I was like try to get my breath back. I mean, it was just ML, right? Off the back of those hooks, you know, started landing the Ezreal Qs. We didn't see a good portion of it because there was action happening elsewhere. So it's hard to say, you know, how those trades exactly, you know, started. But obviously we know how they finished, and pretty big lead in the bot lane for Legacy. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out while you were doing the interviews, Winterer on this Lucian already picked up a 15 CS lead, as well as burning Claire's teleport. And then to top that off, Claire's opted in for the Ghost.
Yeah, no flash. And I suppose that is fair, given there's a decent amount of mobility inherently in Gwen as a champion, and you want to sort of stick to players. So maybe having that Ghost could be pretty useful, a la something like maybe Darius. But a little bit of an exchange going down in mid. Only could be caught out here. Cupcake's come up for the roam. Saved Only's life, but as he doomed himself, Claire walking down. Incursio is now a Thresh. That's going to be great news for Sybil, because it's going to be able to lock down anyone that was trying to chase him. Bit of a roam up from the bot lane of Legacy as well. It's not a party in bot, it's a party in mid. Sybil sticks around a little bit too long and ends up actually being a 1-for-1, which might be a disappointing result, all things considered, for Legacy.
Yeah, a little bit greedy there from Sybil, I think, right? He was as good as dead. And before that fight broke out, I wanted to touch on how I think the Ghost is a greedy summoner. Like, like, you're laning against the Lucian, right? And maybe he didn't think he was laning against Lucian, but you can't Ghost and outrun the culling. Like, you have to run sideways and try and juke sideways, and then by then, like, the mobility from Lucian, you're probably caught, and it just doesn't seem like a summoner spell that's going to get you out of danger, or even get you in. Like, look at the CC, the disengage, and
oh, he's out of range for the paranoia. Shock was so close,
wow,
but just a little bit too far.
Everything that could go wrong for Direwolves this early game has gone wrong. And I mean, it kind of just speaks to what Series was saying on his interview. You know, Legacy feel like in every early game that they've played, they've taken it to the best teams. This is one of those early games. They have a 2,000 gold lead already, 4-1 kill score. Now they talk about, can they pivot this or transition this into a mid-game lead, into a mid-game kind of consolidation?
And I think what's also important to note is, can they actually convert this into a win? Because you've got it available to you. It's definitely not on a silver platter at this point for Legacy. Like, they're ahead, but they're not drastically ahead that this is going to be a free win. They're going to need to work hard for it. But so many times we've seen Legacy get leads in the early game and not be able to convert those into wins. That I always feel like out of last split, they could have had probably 3 or 4 more wins than what they did.
100%.
And I hope that that's not something that's going to continue to sort of crop up for them here in Split 2, especially considering they are so desperate for a win now being 0-4.
Yeah, you hope it's not a worrying trend. But I mean, something that we talked about the last game as well, Elfish, was that support's getting kills, like in the early game. It's not horrible. And this is why. He's gone back, picked up the Moby boots. So now, one way you stop global ultimates, like being this Nocturne, which is already with the first ultimate, but as you play through mid lane, everything you do goes through mid. Yep.
He might be in a bit of trouble as well, speaking of. Culling. Can't really block all of that one with the spell shield. The flash not connecting, but Winterer has enough. And he is also going to have to use his flash, but you will definitely take that. 0-1 now for Shock. Another kill on the board for Legacy. They're continuing to compound these leads.
So, exactly what we said, right? Like, play through mid lane. Play through mid lane, Nocturne's in trouble. And it's kind of a rule you can take the solo queue in a sense. If you're ever versing global ultimates, the one thing they don't want you to do is play through that lane. But Shock's going to have a really tough time finding windows of opportunities if this is what keeps happening. You know, it's not every day that Winter is going to be able to get enough prio top lane to walk mid and do that. However, with Sybil having the equalizer now, you know, Moby boots on ML, Rift Herald up, I'd be surprised if they don't try and break mid turret or at least get some plates.
Backwards and forwards between Incursio and Shock. It's an awkward one, I think, for Incursio. Obviously, with the Fear being able to kind of chase him as he uses the gap close to escape. The chains, I suppose, is probably a better way of putting it. But so far, Shock hasn't really been able to find too much success. I think, again, it's probably difficult for Shock to get enough damage in a very short amount of time to really do anything too substantial to Incursio. So he's probably going to be looking for avenues of attack in other lanes. And that, again, probably does tie in with what you were saying. Speaking of, Sybil is hanging around. Has Equalizer available, but Shock isn't really pushed up enough for this to be a particularly threatening looking position.
Yeah, Shock is being respectful here. And this is the problem though, right? Because as the Nocturne, you want to be like consistently in your lane opponent's space. There's not much that beats you in the extended trades, just through the nature of how your tether works, right? Like, get that fear off, it's just 2 to 3 auto attacks you get for free. You're able to back off, reset, wait for that cooldown. Top that off, you have that sustain. However, Shock's not able to play Nocturne the way he wants to play it now, at least until his flash is up. And again, it poses all these problems because what do you do, right, if you're Shock? If you do sack mid lane and go to make a side lane play just to get a little bit of gold back on the board, you run the risk of losing mid lane turret, especially because Sybil has that Rift Herald in the bank.
Could be a bit of a gank going on in mid. Equalizer is chucked down. Shock does not have flash. He's dead. Incursio picks up another one. Now 2-0 in mid. Sybil doing a good job of getting those laners snowballed. And I mean, this starts to get pretty dire for the Direwolves, for lack of a better word.
He also, I don't know if you noticed this, but Sybil walked over a ward. Like, he walked over the pink ward in just in front of Red Bush, and it got pinged. And, like, maybe Shock was in no man's land. Like, we didn't get to see it, but you'd have to say it's uncharacteristic, right? To be caught sort of there, like, in the middle of the lane, and he knew the gank was coming, so...
Yeah, might have been caught napping a little bit. Sybil's on the move again, this time up to top lane. No Equalizer available, no ultimate, that's for sure. Just using the W to charge up a little bit of extra heat, which could prove pretty important given how many Direwolves players are here. Cupcake's going to have to be the focus. He would have found them instantly blown up, but now the 2-on-2 ensues, and Sybil can't use autos. Oh, can use autos, can't use any abilities. Luckily, ML able to get back up there pretty quickly with the mobility boots and save the day. It was looking a little bit rough for Legacy and might still well be. The snip comes through from Claire, but he is turned upon. Sybil no longer overheated, of course, and is able to put him to bed. Equalizer on the perfect cooldown and only dies as well. That is so damn good for Legacy.
Wow, what a performance coming out of this Legacy team. And again, the thing that I like about these plays is it's not scrappy. It's not like, you know, we'll just walk into the river, start a fight. It's calculated. ML realizes the only play to be made is topside. You know, Sybil probably says, I'm going to drop the Rift Herald top, come make that play. And in doing so, they're able to just counter, you know, Cupcake's gank perfectly to a T, and then they're just able to turn that around. And mechanically, they're playing the skirmish as well too, right? Stopwatch after stopwatch, flash after flash, and it looks like a different team at the moment.
It does. How long does that last?
Yeah.
You know, do we see the table flip for Legacy in 20 minutes? Or at 20 minutes even, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I'd make the argument that 5k at 12 minutes is like almost, to an extent, not unlosable, but it's hard. Like, it's hard. Like, Legacy have to make some very big mistakes with this composition, with this early lead, for Direwolves to come back into this, because, like, Gunkrab has opted in for a very defensive build, right? Like, that's not, you know, that's not a Kraken Slayer, like, that's not a Shield Bow, that's not raw DPS, that's a little bit of survivability with some damage. And it's not your traditional build, particularly when it's only 1 AP, right? Like, it's 1 ability power threat. That's Sybil. And like that when you rush that item, that feels like that's his biggest concern. But then if Diego gets on top of you, like, you just don't have enough damage to shred through.
Well, you would assume if he's going to go for the Wit's End, he's also going to pick up the Landu Endowment here. So he'll probably get even tankier.
Yeah, true.
So that is in the ballpark. We'll see what he opts to end up for. I mean, he was obviously playing this early game pretty slowly. He's gone for the cull, just wants to sort of scale into things. Doesn't want to take any fights. And that, I think, for me, is the main takeaway here for Direwolves, is that inevitably they will scale. Like, Gwen gets to late game, very scary. Diana, Nocturne, Cogmore. And Thresh obviously still very, very relevant as a support. There's a flash through from ML, gonna opt in for the ulti to begin with. And that'll actually force Gunkrab's flash out as well. You take that every day of the week as a support though. Especially against a cog.
I'm a firm believer of support flash always worth AD carry flash, always. I don't even care who it is. I take that. And even if it's not worth it, it's just it's just an ego flex. Funnily enough, like, I don't know how many people believe in like psychology, like the psychology game or the game of psychology in a competitive game. Like if you know that ML the Madman is gonna flash on you when you appear on the screen. No, serious. You are playing with the utmost respect for the rest of that game. It really does start to play on your mind, and I reckon Gunkrab's thinking about it like, what? Why did he flash on me there? And it may not even make sense, but it's putting this doubt into Gunkrab now. I love it.
Getting some Sun Tzu vibes coming through from you right now, Juice.
The art of war.
Exactly. Making them get inside their own head. And I'd say Direwolves probably is in their own head at this point. They are really struggling. 9 and 1 down. 4 and a bit K gold.
To rub salt into the wounds too. You think about it, like, you know, the game earlier tonight that went to Soul Point. It was a cloud salt, and you know, Direwolves unfortunately are going to be on the receiving end of an Infernal Drake, right? Sorry, an Infernal Soul rather.
Not fun against an Ezreal.
No, and it's going to be a fairly early one as well, right? You know, not the earliest one we've seen by any means, but nevertheless, by 25 minutes, 26 minutes. We're going to be setting up for it if it's all taken, you know, relatively off cooldown.
Curzio's going to have a little bit of a look here, only completely caught out. Luckily, there's a lantern. Has to scurry away on half HP.
Yeah, I think the thing that stopped that play from following through, though, was Styled having no mana. I think if he had mana there, they just dropped the Equalizer, only has no flash, and he's as good as dead.
Still hanging around actually in that bot lane. ML surely should not be expecting this, but there's a ward. And so only cannot get anything done. Have to go back to base.
Yeah, everything that can go right.
Oh, no way. No way. In what world do you decide to throw a hook in there? They might actually kill only here because of it. Not quite. He'll just walk out alive, but that is a big brain play. Galaxy brain from ML. It's going to result in a kill onto Cupcake, who sort of came through to try and save only.
Sybil!
Oh, Sybil's not afraid at all! Oh, from downtown style with the ultimate. Gets the kill. Sybil died in the meanwhile, by the way.
Yeah.
It's all happening right now.
That's a little bit one of those head-scratching moments from Sybil. You understand his train of thought, what he was trying to do there, but you have to say the shutdown onto the Cogmore is not worth it, right? Your bounty is not worth giving over to the Cogmore. So, little bit of a saving grace there for Direwolves, and you know, Gunkrab's going to be happy to pick that one up, and now he's got 2 items.
Oh, he's actually gone straight into the Runans instead of the Randuins. Love that hook from ML.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate they don't kill only straight up there.
Yeah,
Very,
they hit
very
everything. They hit everything they could, and look how squishy Cupcake is. Like, he's just at such a deficit.
Well, I mean, that's one of the problems when you do rush the Moby Boots on a support, is that you're not getting the tanky stats that you would from the items. So you do give yourself the ability to influence the map a lot more, but if you are out of position, if you're the one that's caught, like, not only do you obviously have lowered movement speed because the Moby Boots resets the speed on damage, but you also just have no tanky stats at all. And on a Thresh who plays close, that's rough sometimes.
And then you also got to consider too, right? Like, you want to compare ML to Cupcake. One has a Locket plus Mobies.
Yeah.
The other one has a Kindle Gym. Like, that's at least, what, 2K? At least 2K.
Well, it's, yeah, certainly not a fun place to be if you're the Thresh. Cupcake 0 and 4 right now. I've been in that position, and you just feel like you can't get into the game. You know, if you get a hook, you almost are a bit tentative to follow up on it because, oh, if I dive in here, do I just get instantly blown up and sort of ins? So you kind of have to play a little bit more of a peel-oriented, passive kind of play style, which isn't necessarily the worst of things, considering they do have a Cogmore, so you can just sort of pocket him. But in that sense as well, Gunkrab's not really that far ahead. In fact, he's not really ahead at all.
No, he's not ahead, yeah. And you know what, like, Cogmore is a hyper carry and he's this and he's that, but like, what weight do we put on the Ezreal build, right? Divine Sundara, going to have the Muramana, going to have the Frozen Heart, going to have like all these defensive options that I honestly feel like Ezreal in his own right is a hyper carry. At least this iteration of Ezreal, right? In a traditional sense, sure, you're going to lose out eventually, and Kog'Maw is going to do enough damage. But in terms of just what Ezreal offers and the damage that Ezreal's allowed to output, as well as being so tanky, I really do almost pencil Ezreal down to the jack of all trades. Like, tanky, does a lot of damage, does scale. Like, it's almost just so hard to deal with. So we talk about Kog'Maw scaling, but I'm a little concerned about Ezreal as well.
I think one of the great things about Ezreal is that he can be quite self-sufficient as well. He can make the plays. If he sees an opportunity, you can shift forward and try to look for it. And if you hit one WQ, a good WQ combo at the start of a fight, let's say onto a Kog'Maw, like that almost feels like the fight over. We'll hold that thought for a moment though, because Incursio has jumped in. A little bit of an engage coming through from the Legacy lads, and they're strong enough to survive by the looks of things. One kill does go back to Direwolves. Claire putting some damage through, culling from Winterer as he tries to kite back and survive, which he's doing a good job of. Incursio still alive in the thick of things, by the way, helped out by MLG, and he might just get one more here, or maybe even two. Claire down, now Cupcake as well, and that is another bunch of gold in the back pocket for Incursio. It's a quadra, not a penta, unfortunately, as Guncrab is able to get away safely.
And now thoughts on not giving the pentakill. Thoughts?
I mean, probably a good idea, IMO.
Yeah. I would argue, if you are talking about winning the video game, for sure giving the pentakill is not...
I think it was the right choice from Guncrab.
Yeah, 100%. And this is where we talk about Incursio being at home, right? It's Reset City. Like, he's probably got flashbacks to Katarina. He's playing Viego. It is what it is. But he's like, okay, I've seen health bars like this before, and I've definitely reset. And again, Viego's one of those champs you just can't afford to die around because he just does this. And it looked, honestly, like a good fight for Direwolves.
Yeah.
But then Incursio gains health throughout all of that.
I feel like the secret MVP of this game for Legacy has actually been MLG as well.
Oh, 100%.
Every single time you see one of these fights popping up, you look at it and you say, oh, Direwolves have got numbers there. They're looking good in this fight. And then this massive Nautilus just pops up on the side of your screen. You go, oh, actually, never mind. He's 2-0-6. He's able to keep them alive with the Locket. And he's getting there at the right time, which is not the easiest of things to do, especially when these fights are going on predominantly up in the top lane. So he's got a long way to move.
Well, you can play your skirmishes, you can play your lane, and you can look good doing so, but that's one thing. But to play the map is the harder thing, right? And ML's playing the map. He's reading it, and it's probably, the evolution that we wanted to see from him as a player, right? Like they said, they've had good early games. Like, they don't really get blown out of lane. We don't say Styled and ML, they just need to survive lane. What we think about when we think about this team is like, what do they do out of lane? And for me, this is ML showing a little bit of maturity as a player, like learning when to rotate topside, actually facilitating Winterer, who's probably been Legacy's most consistent player. And they're really reaping the rewards of not only having a strong laning phase bot side, but pivoting that into a topside lead.
Dragon's up in 1 minute, so we're going to start to see Legacy working their way through the jungle, clearing out as much vision as they can. That control ward down already, which will be a pain for Direwolves to remove, with ML just hanging around. You just can't walk inside your own jungle right now if you're Direwolves. I almost feel like, I want to say that they have to give up this dragon, but you can't realistically when it's an Infernal Soul at 22 minutes. So you're backed against a corner. If this wasn't a Soul, you would be saying, well, we just give this, I think. They don't have that option. Styled is making those plays, as I spoke about on Ezreal. That's just something you can do. Jump forward. Direwolves have one of their players on half HP immediately. And then all of a sudden you think, okay, well, guess we're not contesting drag. 20 seconds. Someone has to reset. Do have a pause. So a little bit of time to stew over how things have been playing out thus far in the game. But, I mean, I feel like we've spoken about it at length. What is the recourse here for Direwolves? That's probably the big talking point. What can they actually do to win this game? And at what point are they able to take fights?
Yeah, well, you raised the question, right? Like, you feel like they have to contest this dragon, but also let's just wait a little bit, and they can't. But I feel like there's no better time. I mean, you lose this Infernal Soul, then you are not going to have the ability to scale back into this game. So this is what happened level 1, and I'm glad we got this replay, because ultimately this is what sets up the tone for the rest of the game, because Cupcake felt the pressure to roam like he has in these skirmishes, but it's just not there. There's no play to make, and then you see, because of what they were able to do earlier, Styled and ML were able to just collapse in mid lane and turn this skirmish around, and yeah, Sybil falls down here, but again, Styled picks up the kill. And now look at this, ML hook again. He's free, out of lane, flashes the wall, doesn't actually get an assist, but you can see the pressure that's being exerted here, Alf.
Yep. It's one of those games where if you're in solo queue, you're getting constant question mark pings in the bot lane. And there's really not a whole lot that Direwolves can really do about it. I don't think Gunkrab and Cupcake can be very comfortable pushing forward at that point. They can't shove the wave under tower. They can't deny the roam. And at that point, Cupcake can't really match the roams either. Like, what are you going to do? If you walk through the jungle, you end up probably getting picked off by the Nautilus and someone who's just hanging around. So it's a really rough place to be. But a great game from ML so far.
And again, this.
And this was massive. Like, I mean, I can understand what he's done that for. You know, you're probably thinking, well, why not? I'm so strong at this point. If the hook connects, then we might get a free kill. If it doesn't, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it's like, you just don't hook that. Like, big brain.
Yeah, and I mean, the confidence he's playing with, right? And look at this. Oh,
Again,
I thought he was going to throw that. I thought he was going to throw that.
Really threatening. You're scaring. Well, they're going to have to go back to the Dragon now. And Direwolves is probably going to look to follow suit. But they'll be very tentative in doing so. And they might just be a little bit too late to even challenge this. It's gone.
Yeah, no contest. Now it's a contest, but like, you've just given the soul
It's too
away.
late. You can't take this fight anymore. Surely not. Well, the culling goes down, forces him away, only onto the side, looking for an angle. Won't find any. Equalizer with that Infernal Soul and an Ezreal. That's not where you want to be. That's not the fight you want to be taking as Direwolves instantly decimating Cupcake. And I mean, it's not really much of a fight at the end of the day. It's more of a, okay, we are Legacy. We are bullying you, Direwolves. Get out of here. But I'm surprised that Direwolves even looked to try and continue that. I think the paranoia baited them in a little bit. They wanted to get some value out of it, and they just couldn't.
Yeah, it almost felt like Direwolves did want to contest that soul before it went down, but it just feels like they're a little bit rattled at the moment, because Legacy have just put their foot on the accelerator and they've never taken it off. If anything, they've just pushed down harder, and they're pushing towards what is a sub 30-minute win if they're able to utilize this Infernal Soul. And, you know, Ezreal with Infernal Soul, just siege.
Why not? Oh, look at the damage coming out from the Ezreal. 2 items. That's where you really start to feel the damage ramping up, and it only gets worse from this. There's an equalizer. That almost kills only. Luckily, he does have the smite to survive.
He got the red, though, with the equalizer.
I guess you'll take it. I mean, the equalizer, even now, like, you can use it to do stuff like that. It's only a 55-second cooldown. What are you going to use it for in the next minute? Nothing to really contest. It's worth a try.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I'm looking for a way to Direwolves to just come back into the game. You know, are they able to because you know what? You know, are they able to survive the next Baron? Are they able to survive until Elder Drake spawns? Because again, we've seen it last game, or we saw it with the Peace game rather. If you can stall for that Elder Drake, and you find 1 pick or 2 picks, and you're able to just pick up that Elder buff, then of course the game's winnable, right? Like, the buff is just too strong to deny. So I think that's what Direwolves are kind of aiming for and hoping to hold on to, and just maintain this gold deficit, because again, they're not going to close it by any means, but maybe they can get Cogmore to a mythic item before this next, objective.
Winter is just really making sure that he last hits this cannon, because he knows Juice is watching.
Did he?
He did.
I was looking at the itemization, little graphic that popped up, Kraken Slayer.
ML's in. Doesn't want to find his first death of the game, but he will. Unfortunately, he goes down to Gunkrab. Not the perfect game anymore. It is a 1-for-1 though, so it's acceptable. Claire doing his best to clear the wave. Yeah, has to invest the ultimate to do so. Not a good feeling.
Now, I want to just reiterate, Legacy's in firm control of this game, right? Like, in terms of getting this Baron buff, in terms of getting this Elder Drake, but that was kind of a hint of what Gunkrab can do. Because he's having a pretty good performance. Like, he's up 50 CS. He's got 2 kills to his name now. And ML, who's arguably the tankiest member on the side of Legacy, just absolutely shredded to the Cogmore. So, you do still need to play this game, even with the Soul, with a little bit of caution, right? A little bit of respect for the Cogmore. Cogmore's almost like a respect check. How are you team fighting?
A lot of damage being ramped up now for Gunkrab, obviously having finished those 3 items.
Yeah.
So he's a bit of a scary prospect. But Legacy do have the tools in the shed to deal with it. More than comfortably. ML is going to look for a hook here. One goes whizzing past his head as well, courtesy of Cupcake.
You know, with the Infernal Soul, I'd love to see Legacy start the Baron without Rumble. Rumble can drop Equalizer through the choke that they need to walk through. And with the Infernal Soul, you do Baron so quickly, right? So I don't even want to see Sybil here doing it. I mean, okay, this goes down. Big enough. Never mind. Grab the sword.
See what Direwolves can do. Cupcake does manage to get the hook onto ML. This could be a free pick, or maybe not. Equalizer certainly does equalize the situation there. Claire in deep. Nocturne ultimate on the back line helps out. This is probably the best looking fight that Direwolves have had, but Incurzio is still alive, and he's absolutely massive. And he's also a Viego. I mean, these are the 2 players that you'd love to have alive at the end of a fight for Legacy. So it doesn't end up being too bad in the end for Direwolves, given that Gunkrab and Cupcake do survive and they take 3 of the Barons away. But overall, still a net positive for Legacy.
Net positive for Legacy, but I'd also argue it's a huge win for Direwolves. You deny Baron buff of 3 members, you pick up a few shutdowns, get a few kills, and you stall the game out. All you're there trying to do is drag this game out till the Elder Drake. That's the one place where Direwolves feel they can win. Look at that ultimate from Diana, by the way. 5-man ultimate. You're not going to find a prettier picture than that if you're a Direwolves fan, and even though they managed to find the dream fight, it is still Legacy who come away with the goods. But again, team fight that close, Elder Drake spawning. If you're a Legacy fan, you're very happy, you're smooth sailing, but there has to be maybe a droplet of sweat on the forehead at the moment.
Yeah,
Just one.
You wouldn't want to have a reality check fight here. You know, a fight where Direwolves actually wins.
Yeah.
Because that could actually just lose the game for Legacy. Like, that might just be enough to snowball things back in the favor of Direwolves. All it takes here is the one fight, and you think about all the hard work that Legacy have put in, could be for naught. But Infernal Soul, how do you lose a game with Infernal Soul with this kind of a composition? You don't. Cupcake completely caught out. There's really nowhere for him to go. As soon as that Nautilus hook connects, he has done so. And again, that's just the strength of the engage that Legacy has. And not only that, but the fact that, like, Styled, again now, with Cyril's Grudge, can just E forward, slow the Thresh, cancel his Mobies, and that gives enough time for ML to catch up. Now it's a free Elder.
Yeah, I mean, this for me was like the last bastion of hope, right? Are they able to secure that Elder Dragon? And
well, Only's going to try and do what he can, but Styled having access to the Zhonya's really not going to do a whole lot. Obviously, a stopwatch, not a Zhonya's, but yeah, I think it probably is. Legacy just needed that little extra push to get it over the line. Now they've got a Baron and an Elder, so if not now, then when?
Yeah. It's sad for Gunkrab too, because he managed to pick up his Randuins. He was actually in a very good position, but we'll see what he does.
Have to do something pretty special. The Nocturne dive is deep. Remember, Elder is online right now for Legacy. Nicely timed stopwatch from Shock. Gunkrab will go down though. The culling connecting, and Cupcake also falling. I mean, if it were not for Elder,
right?
That actually could have been a really close fight. And maybe Direwolves can survive. Only's up in 9 seconds. What can Claire do?
How
It's going to have to be perfectly
start?
played. Oh, that hurts.
Yeah, King in mid.
I think they just want to clear the waves.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting a little bit scared for Legacy. Like, that was a 3v5 or a 4v5 versus Elder Dragon, Baron buff, and Gunkrab was able
Infernal
to put
Soul?
out, yeah, Infernal Soul, and Gunkrab was able to put out enough damage. And again, how crazy does it sound to say? Like, look at the gold difference. And we're talking about, I'm talking about getting scared for Legacy. Obviously, it comes down to execution. And if they play a slow front to back or just, you know, sit on their double AD carry composition, they'll be able to close this one out, no questions asked. But in terms of just the teamfight prowess and I guess the angles and the what Direwolves are able to find, Legacy's making it look close.
Which is probably not what they want at this point. They were hoping for a pretty cruisy win.
And I mean, they spoke about the team being, you know, having hiccups, closing games out, not being able to close games out, and maybe this is starting to play on their mind, even though they have a 11,000 or 12,000 gold lead.
if you were to look at it on paper and you saw a 7-1-6 Viego, an 8-0-6 Ezreal, you'd go, okay, well, whoever's playing against that is just losing.
Yeah, 100%.
But Direwolves are making it really close. There's an equalizer down from Civil, by the way, on the bot side of the map, which forces half of Claire's HP away.
Yeah, it did one-shot him. Maybe it just has to be a good equalizer. Like, we saw what it did to Claire, and Claire's one of the tankier members of the squad.
One of those abilities, isn't it? It can be just a team fight win if you hit a good one. True Shot Barrage doesn't do a huge amount of damage, obviously going through the creeps. I can imagine it would really chunk if it was, you know, the first target.
This is where Legacy really thrives with this Infernal Soul, right? Having Ezreal just no minions in lane.
As soon as he hits one, you can't really avoid the rest because of the slows. Direwolves do have players on the side. Claire maybe caught out here, needs some backup. The Paranoia can't help him out, and he's just deleted.
There you go, dash forward.
Someone's going to have to make something happen here. Guncrab running around, running away, trying to survive, but he needs to put damage out. Winterer will survive. He has Guardian Angel. Guncrab cannot. Doesn't quite have that luxury in the passive death form. And that's irrelevant damage at this point. Unfortunate for Direwolves, but their run has come to an end in this game. It's taken 33 minutes for Legacy to find their first win of Split 2. And they are pretty happy about that one. I think Curzio throwing in a bit of a fist bump there on the cams. Oh! Winter has given us a show.
Yep.
Having a bit of a dance.
I saw a few dabs, a few dances, and that is the team fight you want to see from Legacy with the gold lead that they had. Right? They made the game look a lot harder than they needed to, but again, you know, prior to, I guess, closing it out, they looked really clean. Really clean. Yeah. Look at that. Man's got moves. I got rhythm.
I'd love to see him in a club, hopefully one day.
Well, I reckon Carbon's been doing some dancing lessons because that's how he dances when he's out. But
good times, good times. Well, good times if you're a Legacy fan or a Legacy player. Maybe not so good times for Direwolves, but maybe we need to hear from Mac. He knows all the things. He's a pretty smart lad.
Yes, many things.
Thought about calling the upset there, to be honest. I think, you know, you might have been saying the same, Juice.
I did say it.
Yeah. There always seems to be one every day. Don't know that I really expected it there, but, well, there you go.
All I know is if I didn't give it to Twitch chat, I definitely would have got an extra little kick on the board for my predictions with those underdog picks. But it was not to be. Legacy really coming in at the gates swinging, you know, getting 9 kills in the first 11 minutes, and then it just looked like Direwolves were kind of lost for what they were doing. Every time they tried to get something working, it just got to that point where Legacy were just so fed at that point they could turn it around with the numbers disadvantage, and then, you know, they'd have the rotations on point as well and just get all over there as well. You guys were talking about it during the cast, that ML was just all over the map, and I'm sure that that is a strong part of the reason why Legacy got over the line. And, well, Legacy are on the board now, finally getting the win and separating themselves from Mammoth, who almost also got their first win on the board today.
Yeah. It's so hard to call the league now, right, too, because, I mean, every narrative that was spun, and again, it's very early, but every narrative that was spun in terms of who's who and who belongs where and who beat who, it's kind of just all thrown out of the window, right? Like, every team at every part of the ladder, at least this early on, has beaten one another now.
Yep. Yeah, it feels like there might be even some cursed champs going on. All I want to say is when Legacy picks an actual meta draft, look what can happen, rather than just trying to go for some crazy experimental games, experimental champs. We like what we see here, don't we? A victory on the board. Maybe they should keep doing that. Who knows? Maybe it's the recipe for success, Jordan.
I think there's a few recipes for success for Legacy, and that certainly is one of them. Look, I'd love to see more of that. And I think, I mean, Legacy is not a team that it's surprising to see that from. This was kind of their identity last split, was the upset team, was kind of the wild card team. The roster that could pull out a game like this, you know, once every few weeks. And it's unfortunate for Direwolves that they've gone up against the Legacy in that week, but we need to see a little bit more from Legacy. I know, obviously, this is a great win for them, and I think we're all excited to see that, but it is just the one win, right? So I don't want it to be a one-hit wonder where we keep going back and saying, man, remember that game against Direwolves in week 3, and then we get to playoffs and it's like, well, Legacy can't make it. You know, you want to see this on a consistent basis. You want to be able to see them doing this against Order and Chiefs and Gravitas, those other teams that they might be angling for a position against in playoffs. And if they can do that, if they can bring this level of gameplay, they can definitely be a contender. That's exactly what we said about them last split. But it sort of just fell to bits, unfortunately, for Legacy, and they weren't able to do it cleanly enough, often enough. So the gauntlet has been thrown down by Legacy, but how much further can they push the issue?
That's the question, you know, it's about consistency. I was a little bit worried even just halfway through that game, no matter how big the lead was, we've seen Legacy not be able to convert the leads into W's historically, but they managed to do it again today and against Direwolves of all teams as well, so that's a big W to get. Now, Nat, you like W's and you've got someone with a big grin on their face down on the sidelines. Who are you going to have a chat to for the post-match?
I do. I've asked Incursio to join me for the post-game interview. Thank you so much for joining me, and congratulations on the first win. How does the team feel, and how are you feeling after that one?
Yeah, we're hell hyped, honestly. We were like, I'm not sure if you guys could see on the cams, we were having a good laugh. We were like flaming Sybil because he was doing some troll shit at the end, but hey, that's all right. We got that win.
We definitely saw the play games. It looks like you guys were just in a whole nother world. Now, I have to say, the laning phase looked absolutely phenomenal from you guys. How were you able to have such control in the laning phase and then transition it to, like, in the mid to late game as well, all over the map?
I think in scrims, we practiced this comp a lot. Like, we pretty much like got Exodia for this comp. Like, this is pretty much exactly what we wanted. So, yeah, I think we just had a lot of practice and it ended up going in our favor. Yeah.
What was the focus to make sure that you guys didn't throw away the lead? Because Melg said that was one of the things you guys were working on a lot. What do you think was the main factor to that this game?
I think we've been working a lot on like someone being like just like having like an adamant thought of what we're gonna do, because back in split 1 I think we're like everyone was kind of just making their own decisions and like not listening to each other, and I think that was like a big problem with our team, but I think we've worked on that a lot in split 2 and we're listening to each other a lot more, and I think that's working out well for us.
Is that something that's also helped you guys have great dragon control in that game? Because I'm pretty sure Direwolves didn't get a single dragon as well.
Yeah, I think going into split 1 as well, we didn't really like have our eyes set on dragons too much, but I think during scrims we've been trying to like prioritize them a lot more recently as well, trying to just change shit up, trying to get it to work better, I guess.
I like it. It seemed to have paid off for you guys. Now, my last question is this the win that is going to set off the momentum for the Legacy reign, that you guys are just going to come in now and just win games back to back? Is this the one?
I don't know, let's just see. I reckon it is. I reckon this is a pretty big motivator for us to win the next few games. So yeah.
I could imagine. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and congratulations again on that win.
Nah, that's all good, thank you.
There you have it. Big W's equals big grins for, I only remember Incursio. What's the other one?
Incursio
No
diff.
idea.
Fakersio.
Fake
Fakersio. There we go. Thank you. Producer Phil
That sounds
coming
like-
in clutch with that one.
Yeah, that sounds like he's not the real one.
Yeah, right? That's what I'm getting.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the player that delivered. Do we all know who it is? Does anyone not know who it is?
I don't know who it is,
I know
but
who
I
it is.
want it to be Winterer. If it's not, I'm going to be really mad at all you guys. 'Cause
Yeah, I know ahead of time. I'm cool like that.
Well,
Not a big deal to me.
guess what?
am I going to
Nat,
have to get mad?
Nat, you're going to have to get mad at everyone because it's not Winterer. It is Emelg who is the player that delivered. He was all over the map. Look at that, 67% kill participation, 17 assists, 2 kills right at the start of the game as well, just finishing those ones off, and then just setting everything up all damn game. You know, the big roaming god there is Nautilus. No one could really take him down. He only died twice. 46 wards placed. Wow, Rusty. I hear him yelling from up on the bloody coast. And I'm at least 100 Ks away. That's crazy. He's very excited with this performance. And Jubes, I'm sure you are as well.
Yeah, he had a blinder. I mean, kill participation's the big one to look at. You know, 2-2-17. Damage share, obviously you're not going to look at that stat being the support. I mean, maybe could have bumped that one up a little bit, who knows. And yeah, you know, all-around good performance. And a lot of the time with supports, like the stats don't really do them justice, just to how good he was and how influential he was. And he was basically everywhere. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the Direwolves guys go to sleep tonight, wake up to ML in their dreams. So, maybe not dreams, maybe they're nightmares.
Well, there you go. So ML was the DoorDash player that delivered, and he's going to be taking home that $100 DoorDash voucher as well. So he's going to get himself fed, not only with the assist money, but with the DoorDash voucher money too. Jordan, if I gave you $100 to use on DoorDash, what would you buy?
Ooh, probably some Guzzi, I want to say, if I could. That'd be a good shout. What else do I like? A bit of a Porto. I like a Porto and Nando's.
You want chicken and chips? Is that what you said?
I do like a bit of chicken and chips, just the right kind of chicken and chips. It's got to be the right kind of chicken and chips, because some, when you order them, not so good, but some when you do, really good. And
Well,
Nando's, definitely really good.
We can discuss what the best chicken and chips is while we're on the break. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another break. Enjoy this 6th song. It is going to be the Wombats Method to the Madness Jungle Giants remix. I hope you guys enjoy it. And we got some more to enjoy. Some more DoorDash LCO action after the break. It's Gravitas and Chiefs coming up for the final match of the day.
And so only cannot get anything done. Have to go back to base.
Yeah. Everything that can go right.
Oh, no way. No way. In what world do you decide to throw a hook in there? They might actually kill only here because of it. Not quite. He'll just walk out alive, but that is a big brain play. Galaxy brain from ML. It's going to result in a kill onto Cupcake, who sort of came through to try and save only. Sybil! Oh, Sybil's not afraid at all! Oh, from downtown style with the ultimate. Gets the kill. Sybil died.